be interactive. And where I've used any term that someone feels like they want it explained more, please, please, please drop it in so that we move away as changed people who can appreciate risk maturity and CMMI. So even before I display, let us appreciate that we are in an evolving world, okay? Extremely evolving. As I share our slides, Nasa, can we put down the display so that I share the slides, please?
I allowed you, Sharon. Please share it again.
Okay. Okay. So I believe we can see the screen with that pictorial.
Yes, it is presentable.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So in today's rapidly evolving landscape, even before I put the word business, we have to have an appreciation of measuring where we are so that we can throw a lens into where we are going. One of the topics that we cannot live without is risk management. So today I really thank the team in Lincoln Academy that felt like we have to also talk about risk management in terms of processes. But how best can we talk about processes? That's why we found that we have to bring in the aspect of the CMMI. One of us might be wondering what is CMMI. Let us appreciate it at this level that it is simply the capability, maturity, model, integration, and it's a framework. So in it being a framework, it is simply a backbone. Where can it be used? In any organization. So the picture we have before us, it seems funny, and one of us might wonder, how did it come about? Why a bird? Why a fish? From our studies, we know that we are living in a world of survival for the fittest. This comes from the scientific space, from the biology aspect, whereby for an animal to survive, it feeds on another living organism or another organism. What do we see in this picture? One of us can wonder, who is the organization, who is risk? So probably the fish lived beyond its acceptance levels in risk, and it got caught. Whereas the eagle, it had to exercise what, and then see what it can do. And therefore, in the end, it caught the fish. So the exercising to see what it can do is the capability, maturity, integration model, when we integrate it into our organizations. So I hope this gives us an insight of where we are supposed to be heading. I've been introduced. My space of learning has given us quite a lot. But believe me, I'm going to learn a lot from you. So let us dive in and we look at the CMMI.
Sharon, you are freezed.
I've been told that most of us here are from.
Can you repeat? Just you were freezed for a little bit.
Okay, so I've been told and introduced to us that most of us on the call are from the decision-making level. We are at governance level, meaning that we are the ones to lead the team into certain decisions, into process definitions. By process definition, I mean in case we have introduced a new product. So that new product, we can say we are a telecom company. The new product, we are now going to start selling data. So in selling data, we look at what chain that data is going to take from us to the end user. So that is the process we are looking at. So we are the ones to say that, okay, let us have this process, let us not have it. What must it come with? We must understand our processes. But in understanding our processes can face challenge. So a number of organizations are going to define risk maturity. But in defining risk maturity, we are all likely to come down to the next, to this definition. It being a level of quality and integration of an organization's risk management practices. Still, one of us can wonder, what is risk? I'm in an organization, but I'm hearing the word risk. So what is risk? Risk is simply something that can take you away or beyond your intentions. It can take you away or beyond your objectives. Case in point, the example I've given that we can be a telecommunications company, we can be an oil processing company, we can be an extracting company, or we can be a transport company. Now, our intention as a transport company is to reach out to the end customer and we take their product to them, or is to make a wider coverage of the market. So what risks can affect us? Anything around climate change can affect us. And in affecting us in our production, it can affect our processes. So if our transport has been majorly using the means land, that means that our processes now have to look at using air. So those are kind of the risks. Now, when it comes to maturity, I really like this word level, the word level. Maturity can best be looked at in regard to the level. Where are we today? Where do we think we can be the next day? But where do we want to be in the midst? That is a level. A level, you can look at it as terms on numbers. We used to say that, okay, today we are here, we are good. Tomorrow we are better. The other day we want to become the best.
Basically,
All
what you are saying, Sharon, on this point, let me just make it a collaborative workshop. What do you mean by that is the current state and the desired state that we are looking for, right? And where is our level spot at on the in this area, right? That's what I am talking about. There is.
Yes. So at that point of our current state and our desired state, we are looking at our maturities, the levels from which we are moving to another. That is risk maturity. Why does it come in handy? Why should I, as a person who is the head of a department, the head of an organization, why should I be concerned about risk maturity? Yes, you should be, because it is going to tell you that you're either performing or you are remaining on the same level, just staying afloat. And none of us would want to present a report to our board members without showing that this is what we have managed to catch. When we go back to the analogy of the eagle catching a fish, all of us are in this industry, are in these workplaces to catch bigger, to catch more. So how are we catching more? By looking at our levels of quality our levels of integration in the space. So that if yesterday we were only producing SIM cards, so tomorrow we are also going to produce data for our people to acquire. If transporting our goods from the time round, we are extending our transportation to the, apologies for my network.
Yeah, you were freezed actually for just some multiple
Apologies for
seconds.
that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Apologies. So that is why, as decision makers, we have to have risk maturity at the back of our roles.
Sharon,
Enterprise
I
risk.
guess if you sign out and sign in again, it will be better because you were freezing for a couple of times.
I don't know why this network is misbehaving. Let me do that, please. Or let me freeze some applications.
Absolutely. Okay.
Is for that. Are we better now?
I guess so. You proceed. Otherwise, if you freeze again, you can log out and log in once again. Okay. All right.
Okay, sir. So, ARM maturity model. One of us is asking, what is ERM? Or how does ERM differ from RM? So, enterprise risk management is ERM. And let's look at what could it be defined as. So, starting from its purpose, understand how effectively is the organization. That means that we have moved away from the risk as a big set, and now we are moving to risk in terms of our organization, us in particular. If we have been looking at risk as all of us in the telecommunications industry, that was risk. But now we are looking at us as an infrastructure team, as an infrastructure at the back industry. Our risk assessment. So therefore, it's good for us to have an understanding to that level of enterprise risk management and therefore have a maturity model for it. The other word that we have looked at but haven't detailed is the word capability. How does capability come into play? That an organization focuses on its capability in different enterprise risk management areas. And this is exhibited through the activities that the organization performs. That's under the, I'm so much giving the telecommunications as a blanket industry, that we have the telecom, but again, when it comes to the team which sells the mobile phones, it has to focus on its different capabilities. One of its capability is to be able to produce hardware, okay? The other capability, it must be able to assemble. So, therefore, this organization has to focus its capabilities in the different enterprise risk management areas. Why is this coming into hand that for us to move forward safely in the capability maturity model, the CMMI, we should be able to take decisions in regard to the capabilities of our organization. What can our organization do? Versus what are the risks? What is its threat landscape looking like? Okay? Which inform us of the risks. And when it comes to the threat landscape, the example I've just given around the assembling and the hardware, on this call, we appreciate that when we are making a phone, there are some metals we are supposed to be placing on the boards of the phones. So therefore, depletion of those metals, of those materials, affects our process, and therefore it affects our capability as an organization. So what does it mean? That we as decision makers, we are supposed to have risk management and our capabilities at the back of our mind when we are taking decisions about our processes, and therefore that informs our activities. So I've so much mentioned the word risk. So what are we supposed to do as a team that is doing governance? We are supposed to push forward for risk management. Risk management has quite a number of methods which can be used to manage it in an organization. But in managing it, it is always advisable that we get what we call a framework, that we get a certain set of guidelines that we follow so that we ensure that we are having a holistic, circular, repeated process of managing our risk. Before you is a simple diagrammatic presentation, a simple picture, extracted and based on ISO 31000. So there are quite a number of risk management methods. So, but I felt like this is going to give us a deeper picture of what risk management looks like after we have said that as governors, as decision makers, as heads of departments, let us have risk management as we look at our processes to understand how capable our organizations are. Nasa, on my end, I'm not able to see the...
No, everything is all right. Yeah, everything is all right.
Yes. In case we have a question, please bring it on. I really like interactive sessions.
That's what I said. Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead.
Please. So in risk management, we have to understand our organization. We have to do the assessments, which assessment includes the identifying the risk. We can identify our risk after knowing what are our weaknesses as an organization. One of our weaknesses can be we have a weakness in human resource retention. Our people easily go. It is not a shame. It happens to very many organizations. So if we have that weakness, then what is the threat around it? If we have someone who has been leading the team which does the extraction of oil, and this person goes away, okay? Okay, Nasa, someone has a hand up. Someone called Akram Ahmed.
Yes, thank you. I want to ask you about the flexibility of risk management, identifications for the company. So there is many disasters could be happen any time. For example, the corona, and now in Sudan is the war. So how the flexibility identifications of the risk could be affected in the company affected the risk management.
Okay, in your question, I've heard you want to know about flexibility of risk management. You've given us an example of the geopolitical disruption, okay, which is just here close to my home, which is out in our Sudan, and how it can affect processes. Is it so, Ahmed?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So when we look at what I've just displayed here, we have the word communication and consultation. We also have the word monitoring. That's after recording and reporting. You see this tire here? This process here has to be continuous. Yes? And in it being continuous, that is when our risk management, that is when our risk management attains a level of flexibility. I like the word you've brought in here, that our risk management processes have to be holistic and flexible. They must be able to adapt and bring in all processes and all changes in the organization. An example you brought in that now we have this geopolitical disruption, we must have a risk management process that is agile enough, that is rich enough to help us combat, to help us understand what this disruption means to us as an organization. And our processes must also be resilient, strong enough to help us keep going. An example is if we are having a physical headquarters and they are in the area which is being affected, do we have an online visibility that our employees can be asked to go and work from home, and then we work only online and our customers are able to reach us online? So that is the flexibility of our processes, which is coming from flexibility of our controls, and that control of people being able to work online is coming from the flexibility of our risk management program. How does it come in? It comes in a way that our risk management, when we were identifying risks, we appreciated that a disruption can occur. So when we say that a physical disruption can occur, what did we put up as a fallback position? We said that, okay, after analyzing the likelihood and the consequence the consequence being that it can stop us from having access to the physical offices, what did we do? We went ahead, we computed the level of risk. Yes, it can occur. It's a likelihood and impact are nearby. In evaluation, we said that, okay, let us have services that we can fall back onto and we work online. And the treatment that we gave to this risk of being disrupted was having that online system accessible. The other challenge we had to look at as now I'm looking at your scenario as the treatment, that who can access, okay? So that it brings in the flexibility of our control. The more our control is flexible, the better our risk management system. Who can access? We say that we prioritize our heads of departments, and therefore we can have our major process up. What are the processes that we accepted that are going to be down? Maybe transport. Using road transport is going to be down. So those are some of the things we can look at in our organizations as we are drawing our risk management. And according to today's webinar, why would we be looking at our risk management? To ensure that we are attaining a certain level of risk maturity. And as we attain our risk maturity, we are also looking at growing our capability, maturity, modeling, and its integration. I hope I've answered us. Okay. So when we proceed maturity modeling, the 5 levels, it has 5 levels. Maturity, the capability model, others are giving you the maturity model. But all of them, I can see I was hanging.
Yeah, it's okay now. You can proceed.
Okay. Okay. But all of them at the end of the day, that integration is giving us 5 levels. Okay. So when we look at the maturity level, it has levels from 0 up to 5. These are the levels which an organization can use to define its processes. How good are our processes? How mature are they? And this criteria is at a global scale, a well-managed scale. So it is really good for us as governors here to rate ourselves and later look at external rating and certification against the CMMI, such that even when we are looking at our risk maturity, it also speaks to this CMMI. It has very many advantages. Level 0 is when we have incomplete processes which are not known, more or less not known. Believe me, there are some organizations which are at this state. But what could cause it? We can put some answers of why can an organization find itself in this maturity level 0. Poor documentation, unknown processes on how we recruit, failure to become compliant to regulations, high sanctions. All the time you're finding yourselves that you aren't failing to comply to regulations. Okay. So this is the level 0, but it is always safe for us to advise our organizations to move forward, move past level 1 and level 2 at least. So in level 1, these are organizations which could be having unpredictable processes, unrepeatable, but at least they are reactive. What do we mean when we say that they are reactive? At least they can do a firefighting. They can do risk management, but onto risks which have materialized. An example is they can find their way out of a data breach, but they make sure that it gets to be, that is a reactive action. Okay? So at least they have processes which can take them and keep them in that business. When others are at level 2, they have processes which are managed on a project level, which means that this organization has grown on average, or some processes they have grown and they can be managed. They can manage projects. They can do some project controlling. Okay. Later, organizations can also be at level 3, which is at that defined state. Here they are proactive in nature. Now, by proactive, I see this at a level that organizations have the capability, have the resources to screen, to read their industry. And they know that if our supplies for a certain hardware material are reducing, we better see how can we present the same product, but with a different material. Yes? So they can say that if we are seeing that the climatic conditions are changing and we are being advised that we should reduce the usage of plastic, we should reduce the number of gadgets we are having so that we can comply with ESG. So this is an organization which thinks and works proactively. Therefore, it says that, okay, when it comes to plastic, we are going to have reusable and glass. So that is the proactive approach. Level, an organization which is at maturity level is to us who are on this call, we appreciate that when we move through flexible risk management, we appreciate that we can have all these levels attained. It's not, an organization cannot be at 1 or 2 levels. It must always be defined that it's either at level 3 or at level 2. How do you know? It is through assessments. So let us proceed if we have no questions right now. Capability maturity model integration. When we have looked at maturity modeling, quite a number of books are going to give you this integration already. But in capability maturity modeling has a very rich history. But in summary, right now, this CMMI has an institute and it is being administered by ISACA. Now, I'm not going to go into that. Let our appreciation be at the CMMI model, its process, how we can use it to check our processes, and how risk maturity affects our CMMI. I believe NASA at the end will advise us on how we can incorporate it into our organizations, and mainly for business value and competitive advantage. So, CMMI, which is the Capability Maturity Model Integration, it's simply a framework for improving processes, and later it is also for enhancing an organization's capabilities. The word capability, I like it so much that it only tells us that we as an organization, what is our capability? Most of us, our capability is the vision. What do we think we can do? That is our vision. That is where we want to be. That is what we can do. Whereas the maturity comes in at what can we do, the mission, what are we doing right, what are we completing, okay? So when we look at this framework, it tells us what can we do, and therefore we improve. Remember that whenever we move from one level to another, that means that we are able to complete whatever the requirements are of that level. But how can we best accomplish them is by making sure that even our risk maturity through our risk management is growing at a good rate. So even the CMMI has levels. I've intentionally put that link. We can go and dig deep and we make a further appreciation in the capability maturity model integration. It has the initial level, which is simply processes that are unpredictable. Then it also has the level 2 processes, which are mainly reactive. And then it moves forward to having the defined, the quantitative, and the optimizing levels. Quite a number of organizations are at level 3 and level 4. How do we measure? There is a link when we look at CMMI on ISACA. It gives you organizations which have been checked to be, which have been appraised, and therefore have been given their certificate and what level they are at. So we as people on the decision-making panels in our organizations, we can see how we can make our organizations even certified, either through our internal organization arrangements or even taking it at a bigger level to that certification. Okay. So this is more or less repeated, but it is just showing us that this maturity model has what we call process areas. Now, in those process areas, they have an ultimate objective at each level. And as again, the same levels have these process areas grouped into them. So why do I have level 1 marked in red? It's simply because an organization at level 1 has not yet defined any process areas. It is still in a disorganized way. So what does it mean to us who are in this call? That at least for us, we are going to walk away knowing that my organization, the worst can happen, but it can never be on level 1. It must have processes at least which are repeated. What do I mean by repeated? If we say that we are producing a SIM card has a chip on it. So we should be able to repeat this process of producing a SIM card. If we are saying that we are producing an electronic SIM card, what does it mean? An electronic SIM card means that we must prepare and protect a certain reserve with growing memory about our customers, so that at any one time we are asked to match the information on a SIM card, the username of the customer, and the area in which the customer is commonly using the card, we are able to produce that repetitively. So process areas in level 2, they focus on project management, okay? Process areas in level 3, they focus on standardized processes across the organization. These merge both project management and the organization. We are going to see some of them. Then we have the process areas in level 4. These use data, big sums of data, to measure and appreciate the processes. Organizations which have attained level 4, these are organizations which can use, which mainly make decisions using data. What do I mean? If you're in the oil company, say in oil, in oil production, we know that changes in the climate affect our production. Changes in the climate can affect our outreach, our people who are in the field. What does it mean to us? We who are at level 4 can easily match and identify that at this is the season which is good for drilling. Yes. So we have that data, we have that record, and we know that at this time, this is the number of man hours that we need. Therefore, we can deploy 4 men. We can deploy 2 men. At this time. So that data is what takes an organization at level 4 so that it can quantitatively manage its process areas. What does that mean to us when it comes to risk maturity? It means that our organization, to be able to maintain, say, level 4, even its risk maturity must grow. It must be able to identify what threats, what exposures this data is faced. An example is this data should be clean enough, okay? This data should be readily available for a certain span, that if I want to know about the climate in the last 10 years and I want to use it in my AI tool, that means that I must be able to have this data punched in. Means that we have to protect this data. We must invest in infrastructure that is going to protect this data. So this is what it means for us to have an organization at quantitatively managed level, and that is level 4. Lastly is the optimizing level, where we have to continuously improve our processes. And this continuous improvement calls for being stable in the market, so that you can know that, okay, if so-and-so is producing a Visa card, I also have the data. We already have the data. So at level 5, we can just say that for us to produce a Visa card, what do we need? We just need an identifier for the customer. We put it out and we already have a Visa card. So let me wish we are together, dear team. Should we have a question? Please pause. What are the process areas I've been talking about in the CMMI? So when you go to dig more into this capability, maturity, modeling, and integration framework, you're going to find that it has some records. I'm going to say it has 22 process areas. Others, it has 24 process areas. But why? It's because the latest development has it that it is producing at least models for 3 areas. These are services, acquisition, and services acquisition and development. What do I mean by those three? Organizations feel like they should have a model for each of the three main areas in which they are particular, which industries they serve. Let's recall that as we are reading into the CMMI history, it was before developed for software development to support the software development life cycle. But as we see that industries have to grow and have products at enterprise level, that is why we have the CMMI also expanding. So in its expansion, that's why it also now caters for products. So the CMMI that I referenced here was the one for products, which is CMMI DEV. DEV is for development. So however much it looks at development, for us here, we shall go away knowing that at the start, I can even implement and analyze my organization according to these process areas. What are the process areas? It shouldn't be a big word. These are simply the pinpoints, the areas which I can look at according to my organization. An organization is, say, a pharmacy or a pharmaceutical center. We are producing tablets, in that, what areas? Yes, we are bringing on board a certain machine which is going to be breaking.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right now.
Okay. In case I'm bringing on board a certain machine which is going to be putting seals on the bottles of syrups for babies. So that process, how do I go, which we are going to place on those bottles, the amounts that we have of the syrup that we are going to place in that configuration of that machine. And that is that organization which is at level 2 that can have a chance to define its processes according to these process areas. So process areas can be grouped according to maturity levels or categories. So what I've presented to us here is a grouping according to maturity levels. So the processes below and their maturity levels are listed in the CMMI for that development model. As I've told us, we have 3: development, acquisition, and services. So for us, we are looking at development. They don't differ that much. So we can look at our processes in terms of configuration management. Since we are also looking at risk maturity, therefore we look at cases which can affect configuration management and what exposures we have. So since we are people who are governing team here, what do we think are the exposures we can face, the risks we can face at a level of configuration management? One is incomplete data. Okay. 2, we can be affected by unknown processes, or even we can be affected by lack of policies. The duration at which decisions are made, the bureaucracy of processes the board has to sit. They want to know what was our last performance, what is the financial element. So all those are things which are risks that can affect us when we are reviewing the configuration management. So therefore, that means that for us to attain a better level, for us to attain a maturity level 2, and we are looking at the area configuration management, we need to iron out those areas. We need to identify those risks. We solve them so that our organization keeps either afloat or it improves regarding configuration management. Yes? So when it comes to project planning, we could be having a challenge with our project sponsors. We could be having a challenge with one of the project sponsor can be a license, a regulator. Yes? So when it comes to the project planning, how do they affect us? One, the moment the license takes long, remember we have already made some investments. So that means that we are affecting our finances and our flow, our cash flow. So in risk management, what do? We identify this challenge ahead of time. Do you remember what we looked at in risk identification? Please allow me go back a little. Oh, sorry. Okay. So do you remember here in risk management, we looked at risk identification. So in those process areas, we identify that under project planning, in case we shall need a certain license, what are we threatened with? Bureaucracy, okay? So if it is bureaucracy, what do we do ahead of time? Let us go and inform that person who is supposed to be giving us the license ahead of time. Or in our project, let us put a contingency around time that this license, usually when you ask for it in this week, you're likely to get it in 3 weeks. Therefore, we put a contingency of the 4th week so that we can manage our project planning and our project monitoring and project control. Tim, do we now have an
Yeah, turn the camera. I guess it is taking your boundaries. You can turn the camera off and then continue.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, process areas, yes. We have the process and product quality assurance. Apologies for that. Then we have the great one, which is the supplier agreement management. It's at level 2 that we have to look at our supplier agreement management, either the suppliers we give our products or the ones who bring in our raw materials. Then we have process areas for level 3. As I said, we can either have these process areas organized in terms of categories or organized in terms of their maturity levels. So at level 3, an organization must be able to have an organizational process focus, have product integration, that from one product we have another product. A case can be like assembling, okay? So when we are doing any assembling of our final product, we must be able to know that this product comes after another. We must be able to validate our products. And what does validation mean? That we should create a point or an area where we can say that this is what we intended to get, so therefore it is what we've got and it has been validated. Then we must be able to verify. Verification, the audit teams come into question. What can they do about the product? So verification simply assures the work products that the business selected to meet its requirements did so within the acceptable tolerances. By tolerances, we mean that we have said.
I have a question here, Sharon, regarding the validation. Most of the people, they have confusion. If we are talking about ERM, I guess the audit department should have a dedicated person who's having experience. Let's say talking about this specific product, okay? Let's say in IT, let's say for example, in IT there is a cybersecurity department, right? The cybersecurity department, normally the people who are doing the risk management, they are the same one who are doing the audit itself, right?
Yes.
they should have the competency so that they can initiate the audit. But personally, what I guess, because the confusion comes always into this place, the validation should come from the organization audit department itself, right? It doesn't have to come with another department audit. Am I correct on this?
Okay, so I appreciate the angle. One, risk and audit. The advice you've given, a dedicated person with experience, is very key. And one of the things we are going to look at when we are talking about the best practices is providing skills, providing human resource, so that we can have reliable results regarding our risk maturity and our CMMI. And it all comes
Exactly.
from
The
ensuring that
competency, right?
the teams, the competency is very key. And even having the independence between the teams. We know that someone who is performing risk should really differ from someone who is reporting to us regarding audits. So independence comes in play, yes. The validation, you're right. Validation should be done by an identified group of people in the organization. The verification, most organizations are still giving it to auditors, okay? But their work should come from a competence-based approach, that we are sure that the report they are giving us is what is reliable. We can rely on it. And we say that, okay, this is our maturity level, this is our product, this is what we expect. So verification shall assure the work products, assures that the work products that the business selected to meet the requirements did so within the accepted tolerances. In verification, we are accepting that we are executing the process that we wanted. If we wanted to produce a SIM card of, say, one centimeter by 1 centimeter, that is what we have. Therefore, our tolerances are not beyond that. Then the validation, we ensure that that product works in its intended environment, and the validation is going to be done by the product owner. So you are right to say so. You talked about cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a niche, is a sensitive area that I urge all of us on this call to resource it, to equip it, so that we can ably work around the risks around cyber security. It is safe for us to have a cybersecurity risk officer, and also safe for us to have a cyber security audit officer. Okay. So let me wish I've answered us, and I wish all of us are having fun in what we are sharing.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. That's great. So at maturity level 4, we are still under process areas. We also have organizational process performance, and we also have project management. Let's remember that at this level, we are simply looking at improved management of the organization, and which is quantitatively managed. So at this level, even the organization risk maturity and its practices must be at a quantifying level. This level is resource intense, but it is the best level I feel like an organization can be at. In today's space, according to a few assessments we've seen, telecoms are thriving in this area because of the regulation around them, and because they really captured the market from a data perspective, so they can easily thrive to a maturity level 4, which is mainly dealing with data. What does it mean to us now on the flip side of risk maturity? They are highly exposed. That is why most of the times, most of the breaches we see out of 10, you find that at least 3 or 4 are dealing with the telecom because of the data that they have with them. So to us as a team on this webinar, this is when we get to appreciate why we need to have a cybersecurity risk assessor, okay? A risk assessor or an auditor who is going to tell us in depth on what exposures we are having around our data. As we keep in the maturity level 4, we also maintain our maturity and we resource it. When it comes to optimizing in this process area, we are looking at our ability to optimize our resources, where we can look at the causal analysis and we resolve our situations. Yes, as an organization, we remain resilient. We remain looking at all the other process areas, we maintain them. But at the end of the day, we attain organizational performance management. And we can justify it from level 4, where we are seeing that we have the quantities, we have the data. So coming back to our CMMI and ERM, there are some key process areas, although all of them are key, but the main ones are risk management, project performance management, and not leaving out the measurement and analysis. In this era, we cannot leave out data management, can we? No. So these are the process areas which can help us define our risk management, its maturity, and helping us keep our levels, keep going up the CMMI framework. So away from that, what and how in the CMMI model?
I have another question, which
Please.
You raised just now into our discussion.
Please.
The COSO framework, I guess it works for the maturity module, right? For the internal controls. Am I correct?
Yes.
And the CMMI, it looks for the ERM, the enterprise risk management from all perspectives. So basically what you are saying is that people can use the COSO process, the COSO framework process to dig deeper for the level of maturity. That's what you are saying?
I beg your pardon, that's what the people can use the COSO framework for?
I mean the process of COSO, the process of COSO framework, because it has differences, you know. The CMMI talks internal and external, right? The COSO is mainly the maturity module. It have a structured maturity module for the internal controls, emphasize the internal controls, right?
Okay.
So basically, what you are saying here, when you mentioned the ISPs, if because of the regulation that now they have and the position their positions their possess of the data, so we should have to use the COSO process, right, for also getting the right maturity level, right?
Okay. Now, what I had to, I like what you're bringing aboard. The COSO framework is good, but it mainly pushes forward. Yes, it helps an organization establish internal controls and to also helps organization manage risk and achieve their goals. But it is now good at the initial level. Remember in the CMMI, we looked at the initial level where we might not be having certain processes already in place, okay? So that is when the COSO comes into play. What I didn't mention is that we have quite a number of frameworks that's available for use, and others have emerged
Sharon, your voice is
like when you weigh
disconnected.
them, other one has a bigger weight than for initiation of internal control. The COSO framework is good for initiation of controls, for starting, for establishing controls, okay? when we are running our risk management, there is a part where we find that we have this risk and we see that our organization might not be having a control for it. Therefore, we see how we are going to go about it. An example is the usage of WhatsApp. We appreciate on this call that WhatsApp can be shadow IT. Usage of personal emails. Yes. So what does it mean? We can say that, okay, we are seeing that in our communications, information is leaking through WhatsApp, and WhatsApp is a shadow IT. So what do we do about it? So then we bring in the COSO framework to identify which internal controls, to establish which internal controls are we going to use so that we can manage this risk. And we attain our goals as an organization when it comes to information protection. So the COSO framework is one of the frameworks that we can use, but it depends on what level the organization is at. Are we good?
Yeah, so what you are mentioning in the initial level of selecting the controls, measuring the controls, assessing the controls, COSO is perfect. When we go for the top maturity levels, we should put into consideration using the CMMI. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, I got it.
Yes, sir. Okay. So, members, I believe we are good to go. Okay.
Yes, please go proceed.
Very glad in time. Okay. So, what and how in the CMMI? What's included in this model? It's simply a model. We simply have guidance. Yes, we have some. We call for systems and tools. We call for trainings, and we cannot leave out the certification and the appraisal method. The appraisal method can either be the one intended to get a certificate or the one to check internally how we are doing. How can organizations use the CMMI? In multiple ways. As we've discussed about the COSO framework, the same applies to the CMM. We can use it to guide our process improvement across the project, across the division, across the entire organization. So an example of a process improvement can be in data management. Yes, we can say that we need to improve on our data management so that we can improve on our compliance. In improving on our compliance, we are avoiding sanctions. We are avoiding the risk that it's going to cause onto our reputation. So what are we going to do? We are going to look out for the data intentionally, set a program to look for the data that we use and the data that we don't use. We look for the data that we process and the data that we don't process. Okay? So if we are a pharmaceutical, we are producing medicine. Surely, do we need the name of the customer, or we simply need the age range of our customers? Yes. So therefore, in improving our process across our organization, we can say that amongst the data we are going to seize and we don't process is the name of the customer. Okay? So that when we are producing, we simply produce a certain product, a certain syrup for infants. And we know that according to the population of our country, our infants are, say, 25%. And therefore, we do not look out for their names. So the other way organizations can use the CMMI is to build and benchmark their key capabilities. Yes? Remember, we kind of looked at the word capabilities. What can we do? So in benchmarking, we say that if amongst the process areas, we are being called for to do verification and to do validation, therefore, we should check ourselves internally. Do we have the resources that are going to do the verification? And now it comes back to our competence discussion. Are they competent? Do they know about the CMMI? Do they know that even the COSO exists, and when do they pull out the cards for that COSO? So we also have to it also helps us to improve the products and services. It is key that this CMMI helps us to comply with the industry requirements. Case in point, in our oil production, we are highly regulated. So in our regulations, we are looking at the compliance required for the health and safety. Yes, health and safety, it is going to vary according to the personnel we are using in our organization. How does the CMMI come in? There is a level which requires for organizational training. So do you see that the CMMI is going to help us overcome that requirement of attaining and having trained personnel? Yes, because we want to keep at that level. Therefore, we train our employees. Other regions have gone ahead to have the CMMI as a requirement. Now, for us who are on this call, we are going to go away knowing that the CMMI creates a competitive advantage. That when you present your papers as an organization, which is at a certain level of the CMMI, you stand a very high chance of winning, say, a certain contract as compared to an organization which does not have a defined level of the CMMI. So that is why it is good for us to have this analysis done, and we get an appreciation of our CMMI position and what risk activities in our risk management we have to implement so that we grow our process maturity. If we don't have a question, these are some of the things that I've just mentioned.
What you are saying at the last point, the organization which is possessing the CMMI as a standard framework for their business, they have the advantages to win asserting communications as a governance side. That's what we are saying. Means other countries like the the Western countries, they possess this framework as well for the governance side. That's what we are saying. It will give an advanced competitive advantages for the companies to possess this framework.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This organization, which presents itself as one which has the CMMI certification, one which has a report showing that it goes an extra mile in its assessments, that me as a decision maker, as a head of a department, say a head of compliance in our organization, I can show the people, our stakeholders, our regulators, our clients, that even in the CMMI, this is how we are. This is where we stand, okay? It puts us at a very high advantage. And that brings in what Nazar has said, the competitive advantage. So that's why we emphasize that let us look at the CMMI and actually from the risk perspective. So before we proceed, multiple benefits have been mentioned. I want to believe that most of us by now, we can type many and many and many advantages of the CMMI. But the CMMI we are talking about here, we who are on this call, is the one which has a growing risk maturity, a maturity level that is matching at each level, or even one which is faster, because we have appreciated that when we manage risk, we can easily maintain, we can swiftly maintain our level of maturity. We have improved quality, okay? We also have efficient and effective productivity. We know that we don't take long to have the customer's product out, produced, yes? Even in our productivity, we see that in risk management, we are again attaining the Lean and Six Sigma methods of production, that we can reduce the wastage of material because we can foresee, we don't overconsume or overstore. Yes, because we have the data analyzed, we see that our customer requirements, our customer desires are shifting. So if we are a company which is producing say phones, we move from a certain level of pixels to another level of pixels. So we don't stock hardware for this say 2 pixel for 10 years. We don't buy it for 10 years. So now we start buying hardware for only 2 years because we are preparing for the customer shift. And that speaks to improved development productivity, which is when ratings were done, organizations are reporting that the improvement is at 17%. Then the schedule. All of us here are customers in one way or the other. Whenever you have an on-time delivery, surely it makes you become a loyal customer, and for the organization, you stay with them. You might not find a reason to leave them. Then the other is the customer satisfaction. All of us here appreciate that our customers are more or less the key stakeholders. Whenever we satisfy them, we keep them in a region of not influencing our processes because we proactively serve them. And those are organizations which are at CMMI level 3. And lastly is the cost management. Surely, when we have the CMMI, definitely cost management comes in. We looked at the other example of studying the climatic conditions. So if you have an organization which says that we are having employees on a contract level, on a contract base, so we know that at a certain time when we are not drilling, we know that this amount of money is going to be kept within the organization income because these people shall not be at work. So that means that we are doing some cost management, which organizations are reporting to be at least 48%. So personally, about these percentages, unless my organization is part of them, so let us put focus onto the benefits in quality, productivity, schedule, customer satisfaction, cost management, and later even to us who are on this call. The pride it gives you, the satisfaction it gives you, being the person who speaks about the organization, about CMMI, okay? That pride it gives us. So how do we merge these two, CMMI and risk management? I want to believe that I've tried to merge them, but we also have to go an extra mile of defining the integrating approaches in our organizations. And later, after the integrating approaches, it is always good to have a criteria for examining the relationship between the CMMI and the risk management processes. Yes, the examination is to check how have we found these two interrelated. When we see that we are managing our risks, are we maintaining our CMMI? Surely it would really be a shame for an organization to move from, say, level 4 and then it goes down to level 5 because there has been, say, failure for them to manage data for the customers. So, away from this, let us look at a few integrating approaches. Members, if we have any questions, kindly post them. So, one of them is assessing the GRC. Yes. How do we define the governance, the risk, and the compliance in our organization? Later, we get an understanding of how we can use risk maturity in our CMMI. So these are the methodologies for assessing an organization's risk maturity level through the CMMI framework. What do we mean by through the CMMI framework? This can either be internally built structures and methods. Yes. What method do I mean? We can say that one of the reports as management that we have to discuss and give to the board is something about risk maturity. And this has to be structured in form of where are we. Even risk maturity, you can simply just pick those levels and we say, in terms of our risk, we can define it. In terms of our risk, we can report about it quantitatively.
Sharon,
Okay?
what I see from the CMMI frameworks to assess your maturity level is the same as the C-risk certification. Means ISACA follow the same process, right?
When you speak of the C-risk certification,
yes,
ISACA has multiple. In the C-risk, there is multiple frameworks. Okay. Even the CMMI is critical in the ISACA records of the C-risk. Yes.
Is it embedded?
So,
It's embedded on the certificate, right?
Yes, please.
It's embedded. I mean, they embedded the process into the C-risk certification, right?
Yes, it was embedded.
Yeah, that's why I see the same process. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So we have the internal or the external methods. The external methods can be either a regulator coming around to assess you, or you getting in a voluntary assessor like the CMMI to come in and assess you regarding CMM and the risk maturity. So herein, we identify and assess our risks, we implement controls and their mitigation strategies, and that is through the implementation of controls, we are now speaking to the C, to the compliance, okay? The mitigation strategies, we are implementing the treatment, the risk treatment, okay? An example of mitigation strategy is, say, separating, identifying the accounts for administrators. So in that, it is a mitigation for data loss through the privileged accounts. So that is a mitigation strategy, that we don't want data to be lost through the system administrators when they are managing our data centers. So that is one of the ways in which we can have our risk maturity and our CMMI, an integrating approach. Then we also look at ensuring compliance with regulations and internal policies. If a regulation states that report an incident in a certain duration, what do? If the regulator says that report an incident in 24 hours, so according to your policy, state that we shall report this in 20 hours. Yes? In case we have a threat that there is a certain worm that is being moved around on the network, report it in 20 hours so that you remain compliant in that 24 hours. Then you also align your GRC activities with the strategic objectives. An example of a GRC activity is having resources, human resource. How long do you accept for the cybersecurity risk officer position to remain vacant? Can it remain vacant for 2 months? Surely no. So what does it mean to our GRC activities? We stated that this position can only stay vacant for a week, meaning that our human resource has to prepare to onboard an officer. So what does it mean to our strategic objectives? Let us ensure that we retain these people, we resource them, we make them like our organization. This also, it is an approach to ensuring that our risk maturity is also in tandem with the CMMI. Okay. On the next slide, the other approach we can take is building a risk-aware culture. In this, we have to develop strategies and tools. Some of the strategies can be the clear communications. What content are we communicating? What tools? By tools, we can say that we are using our website, yes. When we are making such presentations, one of the things we have to do is to talk about risk. Herein, we are growing our risk maturity and later speaking to the CMMI levels. So therefore, we have to explore methods to foster a culture of risk awareness, and then we align it with our GRC principles in our governance, in our risk, and in our compliance principles. An example can be that when you're moving in the production area, say the physical production area, you shall always wear a reflector jacket and a helmet. So in that, we're looking at making our members know that we must wear this equipment, and we can put pictorial that shows that a machine can hit you and you cause other issues. So we are communicating, and therefore we are creating a risk-aware culture so that whenever our people are in the production area where heavy lifting is being done, they have their helmets, they have their reflectors, and we can identify the human personnel. In these approaches, all of them, we cannot leave behind the word leadership, commitment, and their role model position, okay? Whatever the leaders do, even the other employees are able to pick up on. Let us not be the CEOs who say that everyone must wear a reflector jacket, and some people don't wear reflector jackets. I've been to Spain just to do a certain trip on rail, and as we reached the area, what we call the workshop. So in this workshop, you couldn't go past the entrance without a reflector. Not even the head of the workshop, but everyone. And the reflector, the shoes, we had to wear them. We had to make sure that among the things we had to pack, we had to have our shoes, okay, our safety boots, meaning that the risk-aware culture is at the epitome that even visitors, you're not excused. You must have your safety wear on. So in case you're asked to rate that organization regarding risk awareness, it is high. When it comes to capability maturity, surely it is also high. Then we have to empower the employees to take ownership. Surely the organization shouldn't always be the one to force employees to have their risk awareness at guards. Let us put the tools in place and let us ensure we have the trainings. Why? Because we want our risk maturity level high and our CMM levels high. When it comes to aligning business objectives with risk management, this is pivotal. Best practices for integrating risk management into the business strategy have to be put in place so that we have our CMMI levels high. Any examples of best practices we can use? We can look at reporting. We can look at rewarding. Yes. Then when it comes to business objectives, when we are defining them, let the employees be part of the team. Those are some of the best practices. Even when it comes to risk identification, let the employees be the ones to do the big part of the risk identification. So herein, people are able to appreciate that this is where our organization is going, but these are the things that can affect us and we either don't reach there. If we are an organization dealing in transportation and we are in marine, so we say that, okay, our route has been one. Our business strategy, our objective is looking at making our route two-way. So let the people who are dealing in marine, the last man officer, tell you that, okay, this is the objective we are looking at, transportation in marine. What are the likely things that are going to affect us as we look at attaining the two-way? We don't have the customers for taking back the cargo. So therefore, we at the level of decision making, we either say that we are accepting to burn that fuel, or we are not going to do that business. So let us align our business objectives with our risk management. One of the methods we are calling for best practices, and one of them is having bottom involvement into this process. Okay. So the other thing that we cannot escape and live away is having to interpret our capability maturity model in various ways. What do we mean by various ways? Remember, we are still looking at approaches on how we can integrate risk management, risk maturity with the CMMI. Herein, we have the capability maturity model in the midst. What fits into it? Controls, risks, and vulnerabilities. But where are these stored? These are usually stored in the risk register. We also see that the risk register has a relation with the enterprise risk management. What does this pictorial show us? That in the triad of capability maturity modeling and its management, we need to have intentional enterprise risk management, which has the other processes that I showed us that undergoes assessment, treatment, and monitoring and reporting. Okay. The audits, we have talked about them, that internal audits are good. These are some of the methods that we can use as our approaches. Even the external audits can follow here. Whichever outcomes are brought out, that is the blue arrow. Whichever outcomes we get out of our internal audits, allow me use the word audits because they can either be external or internal. Whichever outcomes, we use them to improve on our capability maturity model. And therefore, this can contribute to either the best practices, this can contribute to the laws and regulations. Maybe our audit can find that according to the region where we want to work, where we want to operate, there is a regulation which is speaking to health of the personnel who are doing the drilling of oil. Therefore, we have to look at how we're going to combat that process, that regulation into our processes. So what process do we put in place? That before someone joins us into the drilling units, they must undergo a clear health check. So after they've undergone that clear health check, in case we find that they are okay, they can only work in the drilling unit for only 2 years. Therefore, we put a process that dissolves them into other units. Maybe they can now join the advisory, we can retire them honorably. So those are some of the processes we put in place and for us to attain our capability maturity models. We can't leave behind the black arrow drawing into the capability maturity model, except for the audit outcomes, the controls and risks. We also have the internal control performance. A capability maturity model, remember, one of the levels we looked at was the internal, okay? Where we see that we can have the COSO framework integrated. So when we have the COSO framework integrated, it can help us establish internal controls. What are we trying to say? That these internal controls, when we look at and we measure their performance and we analyze their performance, its outcome also fits into the capability maturity model. A control is simply a sub-process, a part of a process. We make it part of a process so that we mitigate a risk from materializing. So therefore, these controls must also inform us whenever we have controls which are mature, they also help us attain a higher maturity level, and then we attain a higher CMMI level. Members, are we together? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
No,
so I've
now I
intentionally
got the question, yeah.
Okay. So I've intentionally put these links that we can follow them and we get an in-depth if in case time does not allow us to go that far. Okay. Maturity.
Please, if you could share these 2 links on the chat box for the people, Sharon, that will be great.
Okay. When we speak of maturity, yes, Naza, I'm going to do that. When we speak of maturity, surely we cannot leave out the word growth. And when we are looking at growth in this era, we are looking at guided growth. We are lucky that we have all our sources of information around us, that at least we can pick out a few items that we can look at. So both terms, CMMI and risk management or risk maturity, have future trends. I believe the team on the call have something they can drop in the chat box, and I say that, okay, when it comes to risk management, this is where I see it headed. When it comes to frameworks, CMMI, this is where I'm seeing it heading. So some of the trends that I came across that were really in the limelight were ESG, okay? Why is it coming in place?
For the ESG, you mean the environmental and social governance
Yes.
for the UN?
Yes.
Okay. So you know, this will lead me to another approach, Sharon. You know,
Okay.
ISO 37000.
37,000, okay?
Yeah, the 37,000 also talk about the ESG, the technology, and the data analysis. Okay, from the perspective of transparency, ethical, the community enhancement, the CSR. So basically, all these frameworks now they come into an integrated approach altogether, right?
Yes,
All right.
you're
Okay.
right. Okay. So thank you very much, Nessa, for that. Indeed, the 37,000, it's simply, let me see, it provides guidance on how, okay, 37,000 is about governance, yes? But ESG, why
Yes,
does
the
it come
governance
around?
of organization. Yeah, correct.
Yes. So why does ESG come around when we are looking at future trends? And what does it mean to us when we are also talking about CMMI? It means that for us to maintain a certain level of risk maturity, we have to extend our processes to entertain ESG, to go an external depth into environment management, into the CSR, the social aspect, and the governance. That these put together, they are giving us another aspect, another lens for us to see risk management. And we have said that when we maintain our risk maturity levels, we also maintain our CMMI levels. Technology. These are the words I started with. The world is evolving. Before we have learned about blockchain and learned how to use blockchain, the world is not resting. We are now talking about artificial intelligence. Even before we are done with artificial intelligence, someone out there is talking about quantum computing. So all these are trends in which risk management is being remodeled. The levels have to be looked at. And what does it mean to us who are on this call? That we have to look into the future as well. Let us not look at only these levels, but let us look at our processes grow. Okay.
This is
Then
what
last,
we call people, technology, and process, right? The same thing.
yes, yes, yes. We bring in the people, the technology, the processes, and somewhere we bring in the product. That for us to have a good product, a service on the market that is speaking to our stakeholder needs proactively, we need to have an integration of our technology into the processes, of our technology into the product, and of our technology into the PP approach you have talked about. Then risk management in its future trends, it is relying extremely on data analytics. I've just mentioned AI. AI is simply another form and a developed method of analyzing our data, creating more meaning. But remember, this artificial intelligence is already having ethical issues. Therefore, what does it mean to us on this call who are in the governance area? That as we look at our processes maturing, let us curb the risks that we are being exposed onto at that level but let us also know that we have to do the data analytics, okay? So lastly, future trends also require us to use the CMMI risk results. One of the process areas was risk management. So the process has to fit into the framework. I've again put this link. It's also talking about the future of risk management trends and best practices for 2024 and beyond. I admire the team on this call that it definitely has its own perspective of appreciating the future trends of risk. Those are generic, okay? When it comes to manufacturing, we can say we are getting, I have to review spare parts over in the rail. So we are looking at digital twinning. Today, we don't have to make exactly the same spare parts. If it is a mouse, it has already evolved, it's now wireless. So the same applies to those spaces. So what am I trying to say? That in your respective industries, transport, health, software, quality management, you can make a deeper appreciation of future trends in risk management. Again, moving to this slide, the capability, maturity, modeling, integration, and integration, it also has quite a number of future trends. Not only these ones. One, it has to be subjected to artificial intelligence and automation all through. When we look at the optimized or at the level 4, which is dealing with quantified management, okay? That quantifying has to be better understood, okay? So for it to be better understood, definitely we have to bring in artificial intelligence. Then we have the agile integration. So for agile integration, I would advise organizations that if it's not so threatening, the agility has to be extremely checked. Don't go in because other service providers, other competitors are going in, but go in because you understand your market. Okay, so that is the agile CMMI integration. Then we also have the data-driven decision making.
We have 10 minutes. You have 5 minutes,
okay.
And we'll keep 5 minutes for questions.
Please. Then we can't leave out the focus on business value. As we look at CMMI, it has been focusing on processes, but this time around we are adding another layer. The future trend is adding another layer. Let it be about the business value. What is the meaning of this process to the business? And what is the business value? Stakeholders, regulators, risk analysis. Analyze and see, do we really need to collect the age of the customer, the date of birth, or we only need to know that this customer needs this product and then we proceed. Cybersecurity integration is extremely key. And lastly, it's about continuous improvement culture that we cannot run away from it. So all the team on the call, I thank you very much for this listening to me. I hope we have quite a lot of key takeaways. We go back to our display of where are we? Are we the fish? We are catching, we are being caught, but I know as we go away, we are the eagles. We are the ones catching risk before it materializes. I thank you very much, and please allow me hand back over to Nazar. Thank you, team.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much for this informative session. It's been a wonderful webinar. I hope everybody get the maximum benefits from today's workshop. And we will open the questions. Anyone who's having any question, you can just interact immediately. Yeah, please.
لو سمحت, excuse me.
تفضل.
Thank you for this session. Webinar is very good, but too much information and high quality information. But most of these issues or recent issue is the risk assessment. If I need to assess the risk for CMMI, how can I assess the risk? I need to assess the risk. How I will assess the risk? This is the main issue. The topic is very varied and it is very comprehensive. So we need things to go in details. If I know how to assess the risk, I will know I am in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. But how I will assess the risk?
Yeah, Sharon, my colleague here is asking about the steps that he need to follow based on the CMMI and how he can assess the risk sequentially.
Okay. I like it that you have said that the topic is wide indeed. But when it comes to assessing the risk, one, for risk management, I urge us to go small. Start small. Risk assessment requires you to do risk identification. Okay? How can you do risk identification? One, you have to know your industry. By industry, I mean your organization. An example of your organization can be air transport, okay? And in air transport, we also have customer management. But when you're identifying risk, remember risk identification is part of risk assessment, okay? So what are the things that can affect the customer? One, we need information, okay? We need to do communication. What are the things that can affect information? This information can get lost, okay? So loss of information is already a risk. What does it mean to us in the air transport industry? Imagine our name goes around and they are saying that customer information got lost from us. So what do? After risk identification, we do what we call risk assessment. I mean, we do what we call risk analysis, okay? These two, risk identification and risk analysis, are part of risk assessment. So in assessment, you also see, when can this happen? It can happen either when the customer is giving us the information, or it can happen from us if our administrators do not keep the information well. So then, how do we evaluate it? We also go ahead and we do evaluation. Where am I picking these words from? I am picking these words from ISO 31000. Okay? So under assessment, we identify, we analyze, and we evaluate. Now, after this evaluation, what do we do in evaluation? In evaluation, we say that this is the highest risk and this is the lowest risk. So in this space where we are working today, the risk of data loss is very high. Okay, so to summarize it, when it is very high, we have to see what to do about it. One, we first learn how can it affect us on our CMMI. Okay, on our CMMI, it can lead us to go down from level 4 down to level 3 because we have not managed the data. Yes. So what does it mean to us on this call? That we need to have a way of managing our data. We protect it so that we can keep in a higher level. So I hope I've given an answer to how can I assess risk. That is how we can go about with risk assessment. How can it affect, how can we lead it to CMMI? That's how it affects our CMMI. Poor risk management can affect our CMMI levels. Back to you, Nazar.
Yeah, okay. This will lead me that my colleagues have shared some links. We have a training with the official training with Sharon. It's an online training for the ISO 31000 for the risk management. It will start on 23rd of March up to 27th of March next month. Also, we have for the people who are in cybersecurity, their intact framework, the 27005 for the lead risk manager online training. Also, we will for the lead implementer training. Actually, it will start on March 9th of March up to 13th of March, and people who attend this webinar, they will have a special discount for these courses. Sharon, is there another questions, colleagues? And I hope she answered your question. Okay, if there is another question, guys. Any question? You can ask in Arabic. I'll translate it as well. Just take it easy. If anybody has any question, you can ask in Arabic. I'll translate it to Sharon. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, guys, for attending this webinar. On behalf of my colleagues in LinkedIn Academy, we thank you, Sharon, for your time, for your deep informations, for your competency related to these topics. Really, myself, I have learned a lot today, and I hope everybody who participate on this webinar, he take the advantages, and he took the advantages and he learned more. And inshallah, we will see you next time on another webinars. Inshallah, this session is being recorded and we will upload it to our YouTube channel, and it will be also shared on LinkedIn and other social media platforms for our company. Thank you. And also, I would like to announce that we have a community, LinkedIn community. Normally, we do a lot of webinars. We share competent people who's having competencies in Arabic, in English language as well. And Sharon, we will see you on the online training on March for the 27,005 and 31,000. Thank you. The stage is yours to say any kind of messages to the Yoni.
Thank you very much, Tim. It's been wonderful being part of you. You're a very wonderful audience. None of you dropped off, meaning that we are in the right area around risk management and CMMI. Nothing is going to be hard. We are together in this. We shall make it. Inshallah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and have a good night, people. شكرا جزيلا السادة الحضور. أتمنى لكم يوم سعيد. شكرا. Thank you.